Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show. We're so glad you're here hanging out with us today. And it's back in the news. Government shutdown. What does that mean? What's going on? And of course, how's it going to affect your student loans? Let's take a look at it. Before we do, though, just a quick reminder, anything we talk about on the show, you can always find the article with it at thecollegeinvestor.com. You can dive deeper, get your questions answered, all that stuff. You can also ask questions to us directly. Just following us, liking, all that kind of stuff on social media. Just search for The College Investor and you'll find us. All right, let's get to it. Kind of seems more likely that we will see some sort of shutdown later this month. It's clear our government is a little bit mismanaged and has been, like, for a long time. This is not a right or left issue, people. But what does that mean for you and your student loans? All right, so there have been 20 funding gaps, air quotes, and 4 full government shutdowns in the last 50 years. 50. The last shutdown happened December 2018 and January 2019, but the threat of a shutdown seems to loom kind of like every budget cycle. We hear about it all the time. So it really depends on what happens. Okay, so for short government shutdowns, which might last like the weekend or a few days, really nothing happens. For longer shutdowns, though, like we saw in 2013, might remember that, or 18, all the good stuff our government offers, like national parks, military death benefits, all that stuff, kind of stop. But all the bad stuff our government does, like collect taxes and deal with student loans, all that stuff just keeps on keeping on. Go figure. They don't shut down the tax collecting thing. In fact, the Department of Education has detailed government shutdown contingency plan, which you can actually read for yourself. We have a link to it. Very riveting. thecollegeinvestor.com inside this article. Because this happens so often. This is from the last potential shutdown, but we would expect a similar plan this year. As of right now, though, the last day the government is funded, air quotes again, through is September 30th, 2025. So the earliest the government would shut down is October 1st. As of today, whenever you listen to this, it appears this might happen. If you're curious about how the government shutdown will affect your investments, we have an article for that as well. However, one area that has not been discussed at great length is the impact on student loans. Let's take a look at repayment. Whether or not the government actually does shut down does not change the fact that your student loan payments are due. Darn, right? So your student loans are handled by your loan servicer, like Mohila or AidVantage or Ed Financial or Nelnet, that type of thing. These companies already have contacts that were appropriated and contracts that were appropriated and do not rely on the funding measures in Congress. As such, they will continue to operate normally, whether you like it or not. Let's take a look at what's not impacted. The good news is this. The shutdown is not going to affect your eligibility to qualify for any new federal financial aid. This would include any Pell Grant, FSEOG, or even direct student loans. That specific pot of money is still flowing since it relies on existing approved funding, right? Your FAFSA will still be processed as well, and almost all of the Department of Education financial aid websites are going to be up and running. Some more good news, good kind of relative term here, is that federal student loan servicers are still up and running. Yes! I can still make my payments, man. So yeah, you can still pay. All right, so since 2009, the Department of Education contracted with private loan servicer companies to manage the repayment of most federal student loans. And since these private companies don't even specifically fall under the wings of the federal government, they're still functioning as normal. So yeah, your student loan payments are still due. I'll say it again. Your student loan payments are still due. Okay, so because the contracted student loan servicers are still operational, this means you can still apply for a deferment or even forbearance if you need to. These contractors have the authority to approve these options, so they can still assist you with that. They can also help you change your student loan repayment plan, discuss any loan forgiveness options, and work with you on PSLF. However, some back-end support for these contractors may be impacted by the shutdown delaying customer service issues. If you're applying for a loan, discharge due to medical disability, or for student loan forgiveness due to teaching in a critical needs area, you're kind of out of luck here. You'll hit a brick wall until the government's back up and running. All right, cool. Yeah, the good news is out of the way, so yeah, time for the bad news. Yippee. Here's what will be impacted. We all know financial aid is still flowing, but there are some things that will stop until the government's back up and running, specifically anything that requires an employee directly at the Department of Education versus like a loan servicer. That's going to be held up. The current contingency plan says that roughly 89% of the DOE's staff will be furloughed the first week. That means delays will inevitably happen for anything that requires FSA Ed staff. The only expected staff would be IT, finance, and specific law enforcement and fraud protection officers. Oh, that's good. Consolidation loan applications are also going to go on hold. If you have a pending loan consolidation application through Mohila, for example, or another servicer, it's not going to be completed. If you hit 120 payments for PSLF, they will also pause. The reason? The DOE handles some of the logistics on loan consolidations and gives the final approval on loan forgiveness applications. If you have specific questions, though, about your federal financial aid, you're not going to be able to get any customer service through the Department of Education. The Ombudsman office is also shut down. So, you have a complaint? You have a grievance? You're going to have to wait until they're back open to file that. However, just because the federal government is shut down, your state may still have an ombudsman that can help, though. Here's some more bad news. Delinquent loans are still being reported to credit bureaus, and loans can still be turned over to student loan collection agencies. Credit bureaus are independent agencies, and they're not affected by the government shutdown. Here are some potential future issues with FAFSA. Let's take a look at these. So, if the government shutdown lasts more than a few days or so, it could also impact your FAFSA. While a lot of the FAFSA processing is automated, staff members are involved to resolve issues. Furthermore, the FAFSA Customer Service Center is probably going to be shut down if the government shuts down. And that just means a lot of families with support needs may not be able to get answers. Same's true for colleges. If any colleges are needing support with issues, they're going to have to wait, which could create a backlog. This is just like, we probably shouldn't rely on the government so much, but that's a topic for a whole other day and lifetime. Anyway, this is also compounded by the layoffs impacting the Department of Education. So here's why you should care. Unfortunately, the longer that this government shutdown lasts, the larger the backlog of work will get. When federal workers return, they're going to be faced with an almost insurmountable hurdle to cross. The piles of paperwork and the backlog of work is going to be crippling. If this shutdown lasts for a long time, it's going to impact the availability of financial aid next year. ARG. The Department of Education is already facing a massive IDR application and PSLF buyback backlog, which we've talked about many times. It's really only going to make things worse. So now is the time to contact your congressperson and express your concern if you rely on any of these services. A couple of FAQs, then we'll wrap up for today. Will I still have to make student loan payments? Absolutely. We talked about that at length. What happens to Pell Grants and direct loans during the shutdown? So Pell Grants and direct loans continue because they're funded through mandatory and advanced appropriations. If the shutdown's extended, though, students in schools could experience delays due to limited department staffing. Will PSLF applications be processed? Yes, they will continue to be processed since this is handled by a contractor, but actual forgiveness is going to be paused because of the Department of Education. You need a staffer to approve those. Will FAFSA processing stop? Nope. All your applications will continue to be accepted and processed by automated systems. But with most department staff furloughed, students may experience backlogs, slower issue resolution, and limited support, to say the least. What happens to the Federal Student Aid Ombudsman Office? Just love the word ombudsman. The Ombudsman Office, which handles borrower disputes, is closed during the shutdown. Borrowers are not going to be able to escalate complaints until normal operations resume. Does the shutdown affect colleges and schools? Not really. Core student aid continues, federal funding to colleges, universities, vocational rehab agencies, K through 12 districts might be delayed, though. Institutions that rely heavily on federal funds could face cash flow disruptions. Is my loan information secure? Absolutely. Cybersecurity, fraud monitoring, and other activities necessary to protect federal systems and property continue to operate during a shutdown. What if the shutdown lasts more than a week? Well, the DOE adjusts staffing as needed, but prolonged shutdowns increase the risk of delays in loan disbursements, FAFSA processing, and institutional funding. A lot of things to consider. I think you're going to be okay, so don't freak out, don't fret, just take a deep breath. We'll be here to answer any questions you have and help you through any problems you have and at least point you in the right direction. If you want to talk to us, get to know us a little bit better, we'd love to get to know you too. You can follow us all over social media. Just find us, search for The College Investor, and we're pretty much anywhere you are. All right, that's our show for today. Thanks again for stopping by, and we'll talk to you again real soon.